How you doing, guys? Big Mate Danskull here again today, back once again with another Conquest video for you. Today we're taking a look at issue 25. So, issue 25, what do we get in this issue? Let's have a look at the miniatures first. So we get 2 more sprues of Redemptor Dreadnaut. This bad boy on the front is what we're going to build with everything we've got now. So issue 24 of Conquest magazine came with the first sprue for the Redemptor Dreadnaut and the base, and this issue comes with the rest of the stuff we need to build the Redemptor Dreadnaut. It's a nice chunky bit of plastic here, so you're getting value for money in terms of plastic for sure. In terms of the cost breakdown of it being split over 2 issues, you're still making a great saving. I think it's about a 36% saving or something like that. £16 or just under £16 for a easy to build Redemptor Dreadnought, where normally from Games Workshop it'd be £25. Even from a third party retailer you're going to be paying at least £21. If you can get them on eBay you're probably looking at, you know, at least £17–18, something like that. So it's still probably the cheapest way to buy Redemptor Dreadnought. We do have a slight downside in that, let me put this down before I chuck it somewhere by accident. We do have a slight downside in that these things here, like the Ultramarine transfer there and the numeral of 2 there, the transfers, we don't have a transfer sheet. But transfer sheets have limited value for me because a lot of the time they come with chapter specific symbols, like Ultramarine symbols, especially for the Space Marine transfer sheets. And if you're not painting them up as Ultramarines, then you're like I said, they've got limited value. There is a rumour, I don't know if it's a rumour or confirmed yet, I think it's a rumour, that when we get the repulsor tank we're getting a vehicle transfer sheet, so further down the line we'll have some transfers that we can use on this Redemptor Dreadnought, which is good because if you are painting up as Ultramarines, I'll show you my thoughts on the painted section when we get to that. I think it could do with the transfers and with a few little extra bits. But without further ado, let's take a look at the issue. Discover more about Dreadnoughts, paint your Redemptor and powerful models in your games. So, that leads me to believe that we're going to have a scenario at the back of this issue involving the Redemptor Dreadnought, which is fantastic stuff, because as soon as you get your miniatures and you get them built and painted, you want to battle with them. Some people don't even paint them, they skip that step. So, Dreadnoughts, it talks about Contemptor Dreadnoughts first of all. This is like a relic Dreadnought from... Typically you see a lot of them in the Horus Heresy version of the game, which is set 10,000 years before Warhammer 40,000, so it's set in the year 30,000. You see a lot of them in that game, and when you see them in Warhammer 40,000 universe, they are kind of like relics. There's fewer and fewer of them around because they get destroyed and the technology to create them has been lost or forgotten. Technology and techniques used to create them. So that's like a lot of things in the 41st millennium. They don't really have when you read the books and stuff, you never hear them talking about anything like mobile telephones or stuff like that. It's all slightly different forms of communication, stuff that's not really around today. So when you watch Star Trek, it's almost like Star Trek is in the future, in our future. But when you look at Warhammer 40,000 universe, it's like they've not got half the technology we've got nowadays, and it's because they've forgotten how to do it, they've forgotten how to make it and stuff like that. So then onto the next page, it talks about Ironclad Dreadnoughts. These are beastly Dreadnoughts. They're smaller than the Redemptor, but they've got a lot of firepower they can put out. This one in particular has Hurricane bolters there, and it's got a chain fist on this side and a melter arm. They're used typically in sieges, so in siege warfare where there's a particular fort you want to break into and your enemy's bunkered down, if you like, in a fort, then they come with these, I think the siege breaker missiles that are on top of the carapace there. I think they're siege breaker missiles, I could be wrong about that, but I think they are. And the chain fist and the melter gun is good for penetrating thick armour and thick bulkheads and stuff like that. So that's what they're used for. And then more about Dreadnought weapons on this page. Turning the page, it gives us a brief rundown on the various weapons that Dreadnoughts can take. So anything from a las cannon to a plasma cannon, a melter, or multi-melter it'll be, a missile launcher, assault cannon, and a Dreadnought close combat weapon. After that, we talk about Disciples of Decay. So the Disciples of Decay section basically covers allies of the Death Guard and other non-Space Marine factions of the Chaos Forces. In particular, it talks about the Dark Mechanicum. Now, the Dark Mechanicum are the faction that help create the war machines and the demon engines of the Death Guard, and then the Traitor Guardsmen, which the Imperial Guard are the foot-slogging mass-ranked soldiery of the Imperium, and the Traitor Guardsmen are the ones that have turned from the light of the Emperor. Similar to the Chaos Space Marines and the Death Guard, they're the Space Marines that have fallen to Chaos, while the Traitor Guardsmen are the Guardsmen that have fallen to Chaos. And it talks about Traitor Knights. They are the Imperial Knights that have fallen to Chaos. Really simple. They're few and far between, though, Traitor Knights, really. Typically, it's more a knight that has been kicked out of his household and become a free blade that falls to Chaos. You do see entire knight houses falling now and again, but because of their oaths and the fact that they take their oaths so seriously to the Imperium or to the Mechanicum, then it's not likely that they're going to fall to Chaos. Traitor Titans, again, the Titan Legions, these are the massive war machines of the Imperium, and the Traitor Titans are the ones that have fallen to Chaos. It's quite interesting. There's a lot of modelling opportunity, especially with the Traitor Knights and the Traitor Titans, to show, there's a challenge to sort of show how the Knight or the Titan has become corrupted by Nurgle, Zeech, or Khorne, or Slaanesh. So yeah, it's you get to express yourself a lot there with things like green stuff and hacking up your armour panels on your knights and stuff to really when you become a more experienced modeller, it's like a challenge some people like to do themselves and show how their knight has become corrupted. So after that, it's onto the painting section. So this Redemptor Dreadnaut painting section is 6 pages long, as I predicted in last week's show. I think I predicted 6 pages anyway. It says what you'll need is all your paints that you've got so far, and then it talks us over the next couple of pages. Tells us how to paint, what sections to paint, what colour, and again it shows us a few sections in more detail, and then it tells us how to paint the Mechanicum cog, or the Mechanicus cog. And then on the final page, it gives us almost a 360-degree view of the Redemptor Dreadnaut here. I don't know what you think, but for me, this is like, I don't know, I feel like they could have done a little bit more than this. Although we are limited, obviously, by the choice of paints we have. It just looks a bit bland. They could have done like a recess wash, maybe, on some of the panels of the Redemptor Dreadnaut to make it pop a little bit more than it does, and they could have done a grey dry brush, which they've not done here. But next week we've got an issue with a couple of paints, so they might show us in a little more detail. It might give us a little bit more how to take your Redemptor Dreadnaut to the next level kind of thing. But it's a little underwhelming, that for me, that section, considering it's taken them 6 pages to get it to that standard. I don't know. I'd be complaining if they took 8 pages up, wouldn't I? And they'd to take it to the next standard, probably. So yeah, with the limited space they've got in the magazine, it's probably the right way to go about it, and it's Battlefield tabletop ready, really, isn't it? So then after that, we're on to the tutorial mission. So we've got a Redemptor Dreadnaut. What's different about this Redemptor Dreadnaut that means we need a tutorial mission? Well, it tells us on these next couple of pages. Basically, the Redemptor Dreadnaut has a decreasing stat line. So first off, it's got 13 wounds. If it's got between 7 and 5 wounds remaining, then you use the standard stat line, which is an 8-inch move, 3+ ballistic skill and a 3+ weapon skill. If it's only got 4 to 6 wounds left, you lose 2 inches of movement, and then you've got 4+ ballistic and weapon skill. And if it's only got 1 to 3 wounds left, you're down to 4 inches of movement, so you're really limited there for how far you can move. And the ballistic skill and weapon skill drop to 5+, so it makes it harder to hit your opponent as well. So there's pluses and minuses to taking something like a Redemptor Dreadnought. On models with more than 10 wounds, you see those stat lines, and if it's a character with more than 10 wounds as well, you can target that character even if they're not the closest enemy model. Whereas with a character with 9 wounds, then you can't target that character unless they are the closest model. And then it talks in this little section here about suffering damage, which is what I've just covered, and then explodes. So when you remove the last wound of Redemptor Dreadnought, it might explode. You have to roll a d6, and on a 6, it explodes, causing d3 mortal wounds to every model within 6 inches. Or not every model, sorry, every unit within 6 inches. So if you finish off a Redemptor Dreadnought in close combat, it could be bad news for you as well. Or just if you're within 6 inches of it when it's destroyed. On to the next page, it gives us the mission. Or no, it gives us, first of all, a quick explanation on the stat lines. So he's only got 5 wounds remaining here, so he can only move 6 inches as opposed to 8. And then here, he's got 3 wounds remaining, but he wants to shoot these Plague Marines. Rolls the dice, and only the 5 and 6 hit. Because with 3 wounds remaining, you've got ballistic skill of 5+ instead of the standard 3+, which is what you start with. And then it gives us the data sheet on this page here, which is good. It's another data sheet for the Space Marines there. They're becoming more and more powerful, and a more complete army as well, if you like. We're just over a quarter of a way through this subscription, and we've already got like a nice little force of Space Marines and a nice force of Death Guard. So this weekly build your army thing really works, I think, for some people. I myself, I tend to stockpile all the miniatures, and I don't build them week after week like I should do. I've been doing a little bit of conversion work on a miniature. Check out my Instagram if you'd like to see the conversion work I've been doing on the Lord Felthius miniature. And yeah, I don't build them as religiously or as strictly as I should do. As soon as I get the miniatures, I should build them, and then I can show you them in this video as well. That'd be good, wouldn't it? But I'm too lazy. So we've got a transmission here coming through. Redemptor Dreadnought Tiberius.
Traitor Marine spotted. Transmitting location data. I shall eliminate the foe. I shall crush the life from the traitors.
Transmission ends. So Tiberius is stalking through the city ruins here, and he's going to try and crush these traitor marines first, so he's got to get through the poxwalkers that are blocking his path. It gives us a nice bit of Fury Unleashed, nice bit of lore there. And then finally, it gives us a mission on the back page. So this is Might versus Blight. The Death Guard player takes 5 Plague Marines, 12 Poxwalkers, and a Mephitic Blight Hauler, so that's the Death Guard vehicle that we already have, the tracked vehicle. And the Space Marine player takes a Redemptor Dreadnought and 5 Intercessors. Now, the Death Guard player's got a lot more models there, so you might be worried as a Space Marine player that you're not going to be able to cope with the amount of models the Death Guard player has on the table. However, one thing I will say is, the Redemptor Dreadnought has a lot of firepower it can put out. It's got the Avenger Gatling Cannon, it's got a Flamer, it's got the grenade launchers on its chest. I think they're grenade launchers. So it's got a fair old bit of firepower it can put out, and then it's got its close combat weapon as well. It's got a high amount of movement. There's not going to be a part of the battlefield that you can't reach with the Gatling Cannon, and the Intercessors as well have got a 30-inch range weapon, or 24-inch, can't remember. The Intercessors have got decent guns as well, especially when you get to within half range of rapid fire, so you get to put out 10 shots from the squad instead of the standard 5. So there's probably a greater chance of the Space Marine player doing well in this battle than you might initially think. There's a lot of bodies on the Death Guard side, 12 Poxwalkers, but the amount of firepower you're putting out, you're going to cut through them pretty quickly, especially if you can close that gap quickly, because that Flamer will come in really handy on the Redemptor Dreadnought Fist. And then, so this mission, the battlefield, place any terrain models that you have on top of the images on the playmat. and then you can add any additional terrain, the same as the last battle. I think, like I said, terrain really enhances the gameplay for me. So the more little bits of terrain you have, you can make your own terrain. Like I said, I think I said in last week's video, just cut up a cereal box, make it into like an L shape. So you have one section here, and then put a little brace across. There's plenty of simple terrain tutorials you can see on the internet, where whilst it might not look amazing on the battlefield, this terrain that you can make, it really enhances the gameplay. So even if it doesn't look amazing, it might be worth just trying out making your own little bits of terrain, just little corner buildings, corner pieces of buildings, and rubble piles and stuff like that. From all this old, when you've taken all your components off the sprue, it's worth just clipping up all the sprue, and then just just into like 2 centimetre sections, and then you can use it as like a rubble pile, just to sort of enhance the battlefield that little bit, just to give you a bit more of a thematic battlefield. And then the victory conditions in this scenario are that the Space Marine player gets 2 victory points for eliminating the Blight Hauler, and 1 victory point for each other enemy unit it eliminates. So that means the Blight Hauler really is a priority target, because you get the twice the number of points compared to the other units. The Death Guard player, 3 victory points for eliminating the Redemptor Dreadnaut, and 1 victory point for each other enemy unit eliminated. Again, the Redemptor Dreadnaut is a priority target, but it's got a lot of wounds, 13 wounds. And the game lasts for 5 battle rounds, so that's another good issue there, really. We only get 1 scenario in the end of this one, though, so we're missing out a little bit there. We've got 2 scenarios in the last issue, but there's nothing to stop you replacing models in last week's scenario, or the week before, or any scenarios we've had up until this point. There's nothing to stop you replacing models in those issues with the Redemptor Dreadnought. Take out the equivalent amount of wounds if you want. So you might take out the Librarian and the Intercessor squad and swap it for the Redemptor Dreadnought or something like that, just to see how it affects the battle. Just experiment, and if it's too one-sided, then maybe add in a few more models on the Death Guard side, or take out a few more models on the Space Marine side, just to see what you think of that scenario with the models we have now. And then onto the back page. So next week, like I said, we get a shade paint and Abaddon Black, which is a resupply of Abaddon Black. We've been using a fair bit of it. Used a bit of it on this miniature here, and it's a paint you're going to be using a lot of, really. Some people like to use Abaddon Black as a base coat under everything. You could do that, but there's no need to, really. I prefer spray cans. This magazine tells you to just use the colour that's appropriate to the forces you're painting. So if you're painting Ultramarines, use the blue over the blue plastic, and use the green over the green plastic if you're painting the Death Guard. So we're getting that, and then what else? Let's take a closer look, shall we? So we're getting the new shade paint, we're getting the history of the Imperium, and exciting missions. Hopefully we'll get a couple of missions in next week's issue, but we'll see. Learn about Rebute Guilliman, discover Great Unclean Ones. They're the greater demons of Nurgle. They're like big blobs, but I'll talk more about them next week. And detailed paint guides. So hopefully that detailed paint guide will maybe show us how to take the Redemptor to a slightly higher level than we've got it to at the minute, but you never know, it might not. And then in week 27, it's the first issue containing a sprue about a sprue of the Death Guard Rhino. So learn about rhinos, which are the troop transports of Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines, detailed build guides, and exciting new missions. So more missions to come, which is great news. And then on the front of the magazine you'll see Death Guard Rhino, history of the Death Guard, the Battle of Corvon 2 continues. So it's a good couple of issues coming up by the looks of it. I'm going to leave it there for now, guys. Let me know what you think of the issue in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.